Thanks for tuning in to the Drive On podcast, where we are focused on giving hope and strength to the entire military community. Whether you're a veteran, active duty, guard, reserve, or a family member, this podcast will share inspirational stories and resources that are useful to you. I'm your host, Scott DeLucio, and now let's get on with the show. Hey everybody, welcome back to the Drive On podcast. Today, my guest is Dennis Volpe. Dennis spent over 20 years as a naval officer. He's the best-selling author of the book Transition on Purpose, and he's the founder of the Severn River Leadership Group, which is committed to the development of veteran and first responder owned small businesses. So welcome to the show, Dennis.
Hey, Scott, thanks for having me. I've been excited about our conversation for a while, and absolutely looking forward to it.
Yeah, me too. When we first got in touch, I was kind of eager to get you on because it sounds like you have a lot of good information and stuff from your background in the military and what you're doing now in your training stuff that you do. So let's take us back a little bit. Why don't you tell us a little bit about your background and tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. Well, I'll start with kind of who I am now. I'm a husband, I'm a dog dad, I'm an outdoor enthusiast, I'm a recreational triathlete at best, I'm a rugby and lacrosse fan, I'm a Traeger grill guy, I'm a bourbon drinker, I'm an author, I'm a songwriter, I'm a retired military officer, and I'm a certified professional coach who helps others get more focused, more aligned, and more fulfillment out of the work they do and the life they lead. And right now I'm a principal leadership consultant and coach with the Leadership Research Institute.
Yeah, that's great. And you've talked about your military transition a little bit. And I'd like to kind of hear a little bit about that, what your transition was like, because it's a topic that we discuss a lot on this podcast because of how difficult it can be, how many veterans struggle with transitioning. They see the light at the end of the tunnel, that DD-214, that shiny object sitting at the end of that tunnel, and they're ready to go and just snatch it and move on with their life. But then after getting out of the military, they struggle because of various things. They lost the identity of being a service member, or they've lost the camaraderie with the other service members that they were with, and they struggle relating with civilians or any number of other things. We've heard a lot of these stories before, but what kind of advice would you have for people who are transitioning out of the military?
So I've had the opportunity, Scott, to do executive and transition coaching for the past 5.5 years. After I retired, I went through Columbia University to become a certified coach, and I'm now International Coaching Federation professional certified coach. And you know what? Where do I focus my efforts? Yeah, I focus my efforts on emotional intelligence, on resilience, on value-based leadership and strength-based leadership and transition. And what have I found? What have I found over the past couple of years? Well, I've had the opportunity to work with a ton of transitioning military veterans, whether that's been through Team Red, White, and Blue, whether that's been through the American Corporate Partners Veteran Mentor Program, or Camp Southern Ground, or I'm on the board for Camp Resilience up here in New Hampshire. And there's been 5 kind of buckets that I've seen people kind of fall into when it comes to transition. And the first one is self-awareness. Being able to identify how you have defined success. Spending time and doing that work. And I like to say doing that hard work that connects both your head and your heart. And identify first, your objective. How have you defined success for you and those who matter to you? And then identify what really matters based on that definition of success. And then why it matters. So that way you can focus your energy, your attention, and your effort on those things, right? Because the first hurdle or the first bucket is a lack of self-awareness. The second bucket is a lack of self-management, right? Because very often that definition doesn't exist because we've spent time just getting after whatever we're getting after that day. And because we don't have that definition of success, and we really haven't identified what really matters, we're unable to focus our energy, our attention, and our effort on those things. And as a result, we don't have the right boundaries in place. We don't have the right support systems in place for us to manage our lives the way we want to. And, very often we confuse change and transition, right? Change is a fact, right? 2020 has taught us that. 2021 has taught us that. But also, guess what? It doesn't matter if you're a private. It doesn't matter if you're an airman, a seaman, doesn't matter. Or if you're a general or an admiral or whatever. Your time in the military is going to end, right? So that is a fact, whether it's at 2 years, 4 years, or 40 years. Transition, the word we talk about all the time, is a choice. How you transition from military service to your civilian life is a choice that you get to make. And then what military men and women, at least in my experience, are really good at, and I was, good at it too, is confusing endurance or perseverance or grit with resilience. Right? You hear the word resilience all the time, and very often people say, oh, it's about having grit. Well, grit is part of it. And I've got a really good friend and colleague, and she talks about, well, when do you need resilience? Well, it's when your grit hits the fan, right? When your endurance, when your perseverance and your grit are no longer serving you in a positive way, that's when we need resilience. Right? And resilience is all about leaning into change, leaning into adversity, leaning into those things that challenge us and be better on the other side. And when you think about, well, what do I need to think about to be my most resilient self? Clarity and focus, mental wellness, physical wellness, your mind, your body, and then I like to call it your tribe, your social wellness, your connection with like-minded people who are going to challenge you to be better today than you were yesterday and better tomorrow than you were today. And then finally, your spirit, your spiritual wellness and your sense of purpose, which goes back to your self-awareness. What matters to you and how you're going to get after it? Because when you have that spiritual wellness, when you have that sense of purpose, you're going to have the mental toughness. You're going to have the grit to keep moving. And then finally there's always this, and I was absolutely guilty of it, there's this innate fear to ask for support. Right? Because I didn't want to admit that I can't do all this on my own. And guess what? Life is a contact sport, and I could say that as a former football player, a former rugby player, and a former lacrosse player, right? I understand contact sports. But life is a contact sport. You're going to get knocked down, whether it's personally, whether it's professionally, or both. But life is also a team sport.
Right. And without that team support, that tribe, the social support, the other people in your life, you're really only ever going to be as good as you are yourself, and you can't grow from just a stagnant position like that. And so if you're looking to move on and transition or like you said, change is inevitable. Things always are changing. If you're looking to change in a positive way, you're probably going to need some support from other people who have been there, done that, are stronger in certain areas than you are, and can help guide you in the right direction. So that way you're not stumbling and making the same mistakes that they made maybe 20 years ago, and that they're able to help guide you in that right direction, right?
100%. And it's not probably. We actually need support. And I don't know if you've read Sebastian Junger's book Tribe.
Mhm.
And that was a really impactful book for me during my transition to really understand what that loss of connection, that loss of camaraderie might do. And that's why I got involved with Team Red, White, and Blue. That's why I got involved with Team Rubicon. That's why I got involved with The Mission Continues. To have that camaraderie, to have that support. And that was 5-6 years ago. And I'm still connected with some of those people today.
Right. Yeah, and those connections are not one of those one and done. Okay, I made this connection. Okay, I used it for all it's worth today, and now I'm done. Now I'm great, and I can move on and go it on my own. Like, you're continuing to grow. Those people are continuing to grow, and you're going to continue to help each other out over time as well. I would imagine, right?
Well, I would argue that that's the difference between networking and connection.
Right.
Right. And truly connecting. And, I reflected on kind of my 2021 and concluded that, I was really concerned or consumed about expanding my network, right? Getting, the 5,000-10,000 followers here, there, and everywhere. And what I neglected was connecting with the network that already existed.
Sure.
And really diving deeper instead of trying to expand what was there. And that's my commitment to 2022, is to really connect deeper, so that way I can continue to be the best version of myself.
Right. And to help those other people that you're connecting with to be able to become the best versions of themselves as well.
Yeah.
Because we all are trying to help each other out, I would imagine, in a lot of cases where, if you're making these connections, you're making them for the mutual benefit. Ideally, you probably shouldn't be making them for 100% selfish motives, right?
Yeah.
And so when you're making this for a mutual benefit, keeping these connections open, even if you don't necessarily have anything that this person's going to offer to you in the short term, you might be able to offer something to them, and then that just helps each other grow and grow and grow and grow, and then additional connections can be made down the line, and that just helps everybody. So I think those
100%.
are really great points, right?
Some of the things that I really believe that life is a contact sport. I really believe that life is a team sport. But I also believe, and I know you're an Army guy, but as a Navy guy, a rising tide raises all boats.
Sure.
So when you invest in other people, when you take the time and you make the effort, because the other thing I really believe is that deeds matter much more than your words do, right? Your execution rather than your intention is what matters. And when you invest in other people, and when you connect deeper with other people, you're going to not only make your life better, you're going to make their lives better. And, as Pollyanna as it may sound, you're going to make the world a better place.
Yeah, absolutely. So this idea of this personal resilience that you were talking about, how does someone kind of build that up in themselves? Is that something that that they take away from their military career, or is that something that is that they can work on their own, or is it something that they like you were saying before, that could use the help of others to build up that personal resilience?
So Scott, what if I said yes to each of those questions? And we can rewind the clock for me. And I'm a simple kid from Long Island who played lacrosse, and I got recruited by West Point. I got recruited by the Naval Academy, and ultimately decided to go to the Naval Academy. And that was tough for me. It was really tough. The physical side wasn't too bad, but the academic side was rough. And really just the whole, environment. And what I mean by that is you went from, I like to say, being a big fish, in a little pond, just everybody that goes to the Naval Academy, they were varsity athletes. They were class presidents or vice presidents. They were, so the bar is pretty high. So you go from being that big fish in that little pond to just being a fish. And you're like, whoa, all right, and not only am I just a fish, but you know what? There's bigger fish here. There's faster fishes here. There's smarter fishes here. And so I think going to a service academy, at least for me, was a very, very humbling experience. And then you couple that with, the academic rigor and everything else that's associated with it. And that, I would say, that's where some of the seeds of resilience started. But also, I'd like to say that athletics, understanding what's required to win, also plants those seeds. And I had a very, very successful career. Got to do a lot of cool things. Got asked to go back to the Naval Academy to teach leadership. Got to hang out with the Army. I like to call it my Navy appreciation tour, because I was an operational planner with the Army in Afghanistan. And then I got selected for command. So military life absolutely makes us more resilient, because the lifestyle, we have tough times, but we probably don't look at it that way. And it wasn't until I was in command that I realized what it really, really meant to be resilient. And what do I mean by that? I always, since 2014, I'm not a big fan of the Winter Olympics anymore. And people ask me why. Well, when I was in command, we got assigned to support the 2014 Sochi Olympics. And we were doing a national tasking mission, and we were off the coast of Sochi, and we were close enough that you could actually see the Olympic torch in the foreground of the Sochi Mountains. And close enough that the Russians were interested in our presence, and close enough that the highest levels of the military and civilian chain of command back home were interested in what we were doing. So professionally, on top of a mountain, doing cool stuff, and what you were doing actually mattered. And you fast forward a couple weeks, and we had to check off station and go get gas, and sailed across the Black Sea, and we're entering port, and we had an operational mishap, and we ran aground, and we broke the propeller, and we were deemed non-mission capable during a time of heightened tensions in the Black Sea region. So in a matter of 2 weeks, you went from being on the highest mountain you could professionally to the lowest valley personally and professionally, because you're a can-do guy or you're a can-do girl who's been doing the deeds, who's been in the arena for 18 years and doing really good stuff. And then 2 weeks later, you get relieved of command. And you have to figure out who you are. You got to figure out what matters to you and what you're going to do about it. That's when I really embraced resilience and really embraced what mental clarity meant, what focus meant, what alignment meant, and what it really meant to take care of your body. Because the stress of being relieved of command and trying to figure out your life is tough. And then it truly cemented what social wellness was all about, and what connection was about, and what it meant to really be energized by people outside of yourself, and then having that sense of purpose. Probably a very, very long answer to a very short question.
Yeah, well, you know what though? It's good to have the background too, to see the highs and the lows, and how that all happened in a very short period of time, where you were at the top of your game and then literally ran aground. And it kind of turned everything upside down for you. And I think being able to bounce back from something like that is the key, and not just letting that be the thing that defines you. It's like, oh well, I'm this terrible whatever because I screwed something up, and
Yeah.
there's no hope for me, there's no future, I can't bounce back from this. But that's not true in a lot of cases where there's things that can be done to bounce back from this. So
And I actually want to change a word that you're using, if that's okay.
yeah, sure.
Bounce forward from it.
Okay. Sure. Yeah. But yeah, actually, that
That's
does
what
make a whole
resilience
lot more
is about,
sense. Yeah,
right?
it's not bouncing backwards. Going back to where you were, because
It's actually bouncing forward to where you want to be.
exactly. Yeah. No, that makes sense. And thinking about the language is probably important as well. So that way you're thinking about it in a different mindset. So you're thinking about, okay, I can't change the past. I can't make that thing that happened go away and just forget that it even happened. But okay, what can we do to change the future? And
It's part of you, but it's not all of you.
Right, exactly.
And,
and the lessons learned from failures in life, which, let's just face it, we've all failed at something at one point or another. The lessons that you learn is those things are the things that help get you to where you need to be in terms of your own growth and development.
100%. And sometimes I get asked, why coaching, and why should I work with you as a coach? And my immediate answer is, well, I know what success is, right? And I know what success looks like. I know what success feels like, and I know what's required to be successful. And I also know what it feels like to fail. But I also know what it takes not to be a failure. Because all of the things that you talked about, all of that self-doubt, all of that questioning, all of that stuff, I was on that road. I was in that briar patch. And, with the help of others, to include some coaches that I worked with, I was able to move in a positive direction. I like to say that the awesome part of, and I didn't get all the way there, but the awesome part of rock bottom is that it provides an amazing, solid foundation to move in a positive direction.
At rock bottom, the only direction you can go is up, right? And
Exactly.
and so
That's a choice that we make.
well, right. I mean, I suppose you could also pull out a shovel and keep digging, but that's not, that's just going to be that's just self sabotage, and you're not helping anything at that point. And hopefully you're not going in that direction, but it does give you a good launching point to propel yourself further and better off than you were
100%.
before. And as far as that foundation goes, think about all of the mistakes that you've made in your life. And this is for people listening and you as well. But when you think about all of the mistakes that you've made in your life, how many of them are really, truly as completely devastating as we make them out to be in our minds? Because maybe they were embarrassing, or they change the trajectory of your career. If you use those things for what they're worth as learning lessons, even if it does get you fired from a job or demoted or whatever, it doesn't mean that you can't learn and grow from that and become a better person from those things, if you allow that to happen, right?
Yeah.
So
100%.
Yeah,
And,
exactly.
Why do I get on podcasts? Well, interestingly enough, I was kind of in that little, I'll call it the pity prison of, I failed. And everybody knows that I failed. Well, one of the key takeaways from my crucible experience is that we actually think we're more important than we are. Because I let myself sit in that little pity prison probably for 2 years. arguably, where that self-doubt was there, where, that literally questioning your where you're going and why you're going there. And I assumed, right? And we always hear, well, what happens when you assume that everybody knew what happened? Yeah. And funny enough, I didn't talk about it either. And it wasn't until I was on a podcast and with Jeff Hancher. It was the first time I talked about what happened to me and how it affected me and everything else. And fortunately or unfortunately, it was like the most viewed, most commented upon post that I made on LinkedIn ever about me failing. And
not exactly the spotlight that you wanted to have, right?
Well, interestingly enough, Scott, the reason there was so many comments was because so many people didn't know.
Uh-huh.
They were like, and these were people that were in the Navy. These were people that were my classmates from the Naval Academy, who I thought knew and who I thought judged me and who, all of that stuff. None of it was true.
Right.
None of it. And, that literally, that one, I don't want to say that one event, that one podcast opportunity, unlocked some of my human performance. It absolutely did. Right. And that's what coaching is all about. Right. Coaching is about unlocking human performance. I don't care if it's on a rugby pitch. I don't care if it's on a lacrosse field. I don't care if it's in a boardroom or, a manufacturing facility. If you're a coach, if you're trying to get somebody to that next level, it's about unlocking human performance. And sometimes to unlock human performance, you got to help that person, whoever he or she is, get out of their own way.
Yeah.
And that's what the coaches that I worked with helped me do.
Yeah. And a lot of times we can be our biggest critic, our biggest enemy in terms of sabotaging our own success and future, because we know the things that have happened. We know the things that maybe we made a mistake and we screwed something up or whatever. And we're filled with that self-doubt where we're like, okay, I'm just not good enough for whatever this is because, well, clearly I screwed this thing up before. And so how could I be good, good enough for it? So, but you don't grow with that kind of mindset and attitude. You don't get past that. You basically just get stuck and stagnant, and you don't ever move forward with that kind of mindset. So, for sure, I think a coach or somebody who can help get you out of your own way is definitely a great thing to have when you're feeling stuck, whether it's in your 100%. Career or personal life, right?
Yeah. And, that's why that social wellness piece, that tribe piece is such a huge part of personal resilience, right? Because we need to have, I call it your personal QRF, right? And our military men and women on the podcast know what that means. The civilians who might be listening, a QRF is a quick reaction force. Those are the men and women who are on call, who are standing by with the right tools and the right training to help you get out of a jam. And we need to have that. And if you're listening to this podcast and you don't have your personal QRF established, those 3 to 5 people that you could call any time of the day and say, hey, you know what? I need your support. That is the one thing that you could do today in order to help you move in a positive direction. And once you have that QRF established, that's when you start expanding that personal success network. That success network that includes the people, Scott, that you've talked about, right? The mentors. Those people who have actually done what you want to do and you share similar values with and similar priorities with, right? They've done what you want to do in a way you want to do it, and they could show you the way. And then you've got sponsors, very similar to mentors, but a little nuanced. Shared values, shared expectations, and they could show you the way, but they also can clear the way for you and provide opportunities. And then you've got, everybody needs energizers, right? Everybody needs that person in their life where you could just call them on the phone, or you get a text from them, or whatever it is, and it just provides that boost of positivity that you need in your life. And then you've got the trusted colleagues, those people that you know, like, and trust, and you can have real conversations about real life stuff. So you're never going at it alone.
Yeah, for sure. Having all of those in place, I think, makes a ton of sense. It really does help, like you were saying, energize you and help you to move forward and get out of your own way. Because my gosh, do we get in our own way sometimes, right?
100%.
Yeah. Now, the reason why I started off talking about transition and getting out of the military is so your book, and I want to give you the opportunity to talk about your book, Transition on Purpose. Talks a bit about transition. So tell us what the book's all about, and also make sure you let people know where they can go to find it. But definitely let's talk about that book and
Sure.
hear what that's all about.
Well, I know, I know that you're an author, and I know your book just came out too.
Right.
Surviving Son, and your story, and the story of being, a Gold Star brother, and how that has impacted your journey. And Transition on Purpose is about my journey, and it's kind of in two parts. Part one is kind of what I talked about already. This is who I am. This is where I was, and then this happened, and trying to find out who I was, what mattered to me, and focusing on my values and what I valued. And I think very often military men and women in transition, they lean on the core values of the service, right? Whatever service they were in. And for me, honor, courage, and commitment. That makes me who I am. But that doesn't help me make decisions.
Right.
Particularly about career and life. So part two of the book, like I said, I went through the Columbia coaching program. And there's three parts to the Columbia coaching methodology. And it's, what's up in terms of context. Let's talk about what's going on. And then it's content, right? What really, really matters. And then it's conduct. What are you actually going to do about what really matters? And so it's kind of a 9-step process to help you through transition. And the first part, and this goes back to those, stumbling blocks of personal and professional success, is self-awareness. Identifying what matters to you, identifying what your values are. So that way you can make better and more informed decisions about the work you do and the life that you lead. And then it's about exploration and self-management. Identifying your priorities, identifying your boundaries, identifying what energizes you and needs to be part of your reality moving forward. And then it's about action. It's about identifying that personal success network. It's about having that transition toolkit of personal resilience, of mindfulness, of physical wellness, of social connection, and spiritual wellness. And then finally, it's about planning, right? Military men and women, we've got a military planning process, right? There's a way to plan. And utilizing, the military planning process that we all, knew, and some of us knew it more intimately than others, but utilizing, those tools to plan your life. Knowing that, guess what? Change is a fact. And just because you have a plan doesn't mean that it's not going to change. Right? But General Eisenhower talked about it. Plans are useless, but planning is essential.
It is. And having a plan for the inevitable change that's going to happen is important. it's just as
Yep.
important as having your initial plan for whatever it is that you're trying to do. Knowing that things are going to change at one point or another is important to do, because otherwise you're setting yourself up for failure when something inevitably does change, right?
But if you know how you have defined success and why you've defined success that way and what you truly value, it'll be easier to make decisions about whatever that path is.
Yeah, for sure. It definitely will be. And so that's kind of the gist of the book. Obviously, we don't want to give everything away and give all the tidbits away, because we want people to go and grab a copy of the book and read that for themselves. Where can people go to find the book?
So you can go to my website, which is dennis-volpe.com, or you can go to transitiononpurpose.com, or you can go straight to Amazon.
Okay.
And Transition on Purpose. And, for all those military men and women out there, all the proceeds of my book go to Camp Resilience, which is a veteran transition program up here in New Hampshire that utilizes the outdoors of the Lakes region of New Hampshire to help military veterans and first responders bounce forward in mind, body, and spirit in order to successfully transition from military or first responder service to their next chapter of things.
Yeah, it sounds like a great organization, and one that's definitely worthy of that type of support. So for everyone out there listening, go check out the book, Transition on Purpose. Not only are you helping yourself by reading the book and learning some of the lessons contained inside of there, but you'll also be helping out Camp Resilience and all the great things that they're doing as well. So I think that's definitely great, and I'm glad that you're doing that and that you have that book out there for people to read. Where can people go to get in touch with you and find out more about your coaching and everything else that you do?
Sure. The best place to get a hold of me is through my website, dennis-volpe.com, or via LinkedIn. And
Okay.
If you can't get a hold of me in either of those two places, you can go to the Leadership Research Institute, which is LRI, Lima Romeo India.com, and you can get a hold of me there.
Yeah, great. And I will have links to all of these websites and your social media, LinkedIn, in the show notes. So anyone who's looking to get in touch with Dennis, definitely check out those show notes, and you can click through on there. It saves you the time of having to look all that stuff up and everything. So it's all in one place. So check that out. Get in touch with Dennis if you're interested in what he does, or if you want to grab a copy of his book. All those links will be available there. So Dennis, again, thank you so much for coming on the show, sharing your story and a little bit of your background. I'm sure we could probably go on and dive into a whole lot more, but maybe we can save that for another episode down the line. But it's been a pleasure speaking with you today, and I thank you again for joining us.
Well, Scott, thank you so much for the conversation, and thank you so much for the connection.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. Thanks for listening to the Drive On Podcast. If you want to check out more episodes or learn more about the show, you can visit our website, driveonpodcast.com. We're also on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, and YouTube at Drive On Podcast.